All right, materials processing class. This is Mr. Voigt. This is the safety video for the drill press. First thing I want to do is talk a little bit about the press. Just like most pieces of machinery, it has a table. When we drill wood in here, I like to keep a piece of scrap on the table so that I can cut all the way through something that I'm drilling and not cut into my table. There is a hole in the middle of it that you can line up with your bit, but it's not very large, and so we tend to keep this here. We also have the lowering lever here that you use to plunge into. These are used, this table also tilts so you can drill holes at an angle, but it's really good stable surface so you can get nice, clean, very vertical holes. You also can set the depth using your depth gauge here. You set those so that you can have a depth that is very, very consistent. So this is set to just go into my piece of scrap below, but not too far into it, so that I can cut through things cleanly. So you can set that at any depth you want. If you don't want to cut all the way through a board, you can set it to go only an inch in or whatever you need for a depth, and you can do it consistently over and over and over. This one does have a light. We don't really have that hooked up right now because we don't really need it in here. There's also a lever here where you can take this table up and down. You have a locking mechanism here that locks the table. If I loosen that, then I can crank this table up and down, okay? And it moves from side to side as well. So before I use it, I want to make sure that this lock is tightened again. Before I use it, I want to make sure that lock is tightened. I want to make sure all my guards are tight. Usually I want to have this guard down, but we don't always have to have that one down. Make sure my upper guard is tight. Make sure that I don't have my chuck key in it. So lots of times you have to tighten this with a key, and you can't tighten it and then leave that in there. It'll go flying when you turn this on. So make sure that's out before you start doing any of these things. Okay, when you're using the drill press, you're going to use one of a number of bits. There's lots of different bit types. I'm not going to cover them all here, but I'm going to cover a few. The one we have in there and this one, these are just traditional twist bits, and you can see how the blade on it, the edge on it twists up the drill so it feeds your shavings away. Some of these have a little point on them. You have specialized twist bits. Some of them have special shanks on them so they can only fit in certain types of drills. This is called a spade bit. This tends to be when you want to cut a little bit wider hole. This one has a special shank on it that you can put into those impact drivers. The collard, instead of having a regular chuck like these or a Jacobs chuck that you use on a hand drill, has a special shank. So there are many different kinds of shanks too. I'm not going to quiz you on those, but sometimes certain drills don't handle every bit. So you have to be aware of that. Make sure your shank fits your machine. This is called a Forstner bit. This is again made for making a little bit bigger holes. Really makes really clean, nice holes. We have what we call auger bits. I don't have one of those in front of me right now, but people that are drilling lots of decent sized holes through rough lumber, you get auger bits. They do a very good job of going through it. They don't make as nice a holes as Forstner bits, but they cut really, really quickly. So when you're like an electrician would use an auger bit to go through the studs when he has to go through one after another and another. He doesn't need super, super nice holes, but he needs them there and he needs them fast, or they need them there. Forstner bits are a little bit more precision. You have hole saws that go on a drill, and they just a saw edge around a bigger opening. They get up to like 6 inches in diameter. So anyway, lots of different bits. Okay, you're going to want to make sure that when you use this, on top of making sure the machine is set up right, that it's clean, that the floor is dry, there's no oil or water or anything of that around it. Sometimes, and I'm going to go over and get it here, sometimes you'll clamp, well, first off, anything you drill should be clamped to the table, either with just a clamp or with what we call a drill vise. And I'm going to go get a drill vise, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. So this is a small drill vise. These holes have bolts that go through them, and there are slots in these tables and the bolt heads slide into these slots and then bolt down. So this isn't a very big vise, but you could attach this vise to the table and then it will hold your material for you so you can drill. Now these are more suited, are used more often when you're drilling through metal. Usually when you're drilling through wood, just a regular, it's a big enough piece, wide enough piece, you can clamp it to the table just using a regular clamp. But every now and then, if I have a small piece of wood that I want to drill and hold it, I'll use this. Again, typically used with metal. So that's a drill vise. So anytime you drill, you have to clamp to the table or you have to use a vise to hold what it is you're looking to hold. Anytime you get done using this machine, just like all pieces of machinery, you need to wait till it turns all the way off before you leave. Take the bit out and put it back if you're done. If you're going to cut more, obviously, then you're not done. You would just turn it off, wait till it stops before you go get something else. But when you're done, take the bit out and put it away, and then clean up. You don't want to clean up, especially if you've been cutting metal, with your hands. And you certainly don't want to use compressed air. It blows things everywhere, right? If you have little metal shavings and you use compressed air, it might go in your eyes, or even if it's dust from wood, it can go up in your nose, and it's not safe. So you should use a brush to clean this off and brush it in either onto the floor and then sweep it together. You could vacuum it, but the right answer on the test is going to be use a brush, okay, to do this. Do not use compressed air or your hand. Sometimes if you try to feed this too fast, it can seize. If it seizes, sometimes it will grab and spin whatever you're trying to cut through along with it. So because of that, you're going to want to take whatever you're cutting, especially if it's longer, and you're going to put the length of it to the left of our post here. Because if it starts spinning it, it will spin it clockwise, and it will hit that post instead of coming around and hitting you. And you're going to want to not go too fast as you feed your bit down through it. When you feed a bit into wood or metal, you want to engage the wood and then just keep enough pressure to keep it cutting without going too fast, right? Without overwhelming it. Just keep it engaged and cutting until you can go through the other side. You can usually tell when you're getting close to getting through whatever material it is, and when that happens, so you're keeping this engaged, when you know you're going to break through the other side, you want to let up just a little bit and try to let it cut its way out the other side instead of, because what will happen is as you get thinner and thinner and you're putting pressure on it, sometimes it'll break out that back side. If it's wood, it splinters it out. If it's metal, it kind of bends it over and creates burrs. You want to press hard enough it keeps cutting, but not so hard it breaks it out. You want to cut your way through so it's a nice round hole that you don't have to go back and do anything with. The test will also, by the way, if you do cut metal, one thing a question on the test is you got to be careful because there often are burrs on the back side of it. So you don't want to cut it, pick it up, and swipe your hand on the back of that metal. It can happen with wood too. If you splinter a piece, you swipe your hand on the back of it and it splinters into you or cuts you. So be careful on the back side of metal or wood after you drill through it. Check it. If there's burrs, grind them off maybe. If it's wood, you got to sand it or at least take the splinters off. If you have a long piece, I told you to put it off the left-hand side, but if it's long, you're going to either want a person out there, a helper out there holding it, but better yet, we have stands. You want to put a stand out and support that. What they say on the test is support the unclamped end, because you're going to clamp everything. If you have a really long piece, you're going to clamp this end that you're going to cut to your drill press table. So support the unclamped end. Okay, that'll be a question on the test. If you are cutting something and it seizes, and what that means is it stops cutting through whatever material you're trying to cut through. When it seizes, it can grab that material and it can move it. If you have it clamped or in a vise clamp here, it can actually move this clamp. It can break your bit. That happens sometimes. Or it can actually, the check will keep spinning and your bit stops. All those things can happen. It can actually take something, and if you don't have it clamped well, and move it. And hopefully, because we have it sticking off the left-hand side, it'll run into that post before it comes around and hits you. But anyway, if any of those things happen and it's not cutting, you need to, as quickly as you can, hit stop and step away. If you can't hit stop safely, step away. And even if something's spinning, we'll have to cut the power by unplugging it or going to the breaker box and turning off power. Do not try to avoid it and get in there and turn it off. We will cut the power another way. Typically, if you do it right, you're going to be able to hit stop and step away. I've never had a situation where you couldn't do that, but that's how you deal with something that seizes. We will then, after it stops, we'll unplug it and really get whatever is seized off of the bit and evaluate where to go from there. Okay, those are the rules of the drill press. Get that safety test accomplished. Thanks, guys.